Joining us right now is the big man, Mr. Mitch Tischler from the Beltway Football Podcast. Dude, we played our Mikey Sanistrill interview earlier. I was really impressed by him. Anything stand out particularly for you?
Yeah, just kind of his maturity level. The fact that he already is making the move from Michigan to the DC area means this kid's ready to go. He's going to be here, for the summer, get his workouts in at the in Ashburn. I kind of love that out of the rookie. I think a lot of guys, generally move closer to training camp when they're going to be here, for the season. And the fact that he's already done that over the summer means he's locked in.
I totally agree. Had the same reaction. Over the Cap, the dude from Over the Cap, Jason, put out this interesting list that I just retweeted and kind of brought to the conversation. We're all highly aware of the level of turnover in Ashburn. They signed the biggest free agent class. They just drafted 9 guys. But the thing I find really interesting is he actually was able to do the math on it, which you wouldn't trust me with, but others you can. The Commanders have the fewest percent of players returning from last year's roster. They only have 57% of players returning. And I would point out that you still have camp and cuts to come, right? Like,
oh yeah,
I think I'd venture by week 1 against whoever it may be, and we get to find out the schedule probably next week, or is that this week now? Might be this.
I think
Thursday.
it should be probably this Thursday-ish. Should
Right.
be when we find out.
I think they'll have fewer than half roster returners on that roster. I think we've seen a lot already, but there's still more coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see that kind of regularly, maybe not quite to this extent, but when a new front office and coaching staff comes into a team that was, objectively pretty terrible last year, they're going to make big turnovers. Heck, even when Ron came in 4 years ago, I think after his second season, or heading into his second season here, there were only like 11 players or something like that that had played in games, under the previous regime. So you see that with coaches all over. They want to bring in their guys, and I think also establishing a GM for the first time, for this franchise in a long time, a guy who's actually in charge and kind of directing the vision. He's going to start bringing in his type of guys and the guys that he knows and likes and kind of wants to play with. And so I'm not that surprised by it. And quite honestly, I think it's a pretty great thing because this roster was so devoid of talent, especially after you get after that starting 22. There were guys that might not be in the league anymore who were backups last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've already seen some guys retire, right? We'll see how that looks as we get closer, but it is kind of a fascinating time to be a Washington fan in that they've overhauled the roster. They finally got rid of Dan. There's so much reason for excitement, and I think within the bubble that we all operate within, which is like hardcore fans, social media, folks listening to the radio and the podcast and stuff. But I wonder, I heard the Junks talking about this morning, how much buzz there is, big picture for Commanders fans, like outside, because if Commanders fans if there's 100 Commanders fans, probably only like 20 or 30 of them that are in it every day, right? Like maybe it's 50-50, maybe it's higher than I'm imagining, but I feel like there should be more. People asked me this weekend. I had Shelby's first communion. It was a great day. And I ran into a bunch of people like, oh, what'd you think of the draft? I'm like, it's great. Like, they might have gotten the quarterback. Weirdly, I feel like there's not enough excitement about Jayden Daniels. And I don't understand it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of separate excitement about Jayden. I think because for casual fans, they remind them of RG3, and everyone still has PTSD from, everything that went down with that. But honestly, I mean, you look at the offseason signings, and the most impactful players that they signed were, maybe Tyler Biotish on offense and Bobby Wagner on defense. I mean, there wasn't, if they went out and brought in, a big time receiver or even a big time Derrick Henry or something like that, I think that might get, casual fans a little more excited. But we saw during the draft, and I think we saw during free agency, they're trying to implement the building blocks to a 1 to 53 roster. And by doing that, you're not going out and going after the big names. You're not going out and signing big contract players that, that get people excited and get casual fans to perk up about it. Jaden Daniels is the biggest guy in that group, and he has too close of a connection, at least in body type and somewhat play style, or at least media described play style, as RG3. So I think there's a little bit of a tempered excitement. But I think when you start seeing the team playing a more competent brand of football on the field, I think that this offense, knock on wood, should be better than, these offenses, these kind of boring offenses that we've seen over the past decade or so that haven't been able to push the ball downfield and score points. And, that's what gets fans excited. That's what gets casuals into it. When you see a Commanders team put up 40 points in a game, and, that's happened, twice in 10 years or something like that.
It's crazy.
So I don't think it's going to be, this immediate rush back for the casual fan. But I do think that once we start seeing this on the field, that you're going to see people get a little more excited, because you're going to see some of those, big time highlight plays from Jaden Daniels. You're going to see, the Commanders hopefully on, SportsCenter's top 10 and on all the highlight shows and stuff like that. Heck, even when you talk about, Red Zone, which so many people watch, the Commanders are barely featured on Red Zone because they have such a boring offense. They're only featured on Red Zone when they're getting beat for 40 yards over the top.
Yeah, you only see, last year anyway, it was only Washington's defense on Red Zone. Very rarely the offense. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, their offense has been so bad so long. The best offense they had, honestly, was probably Turner with Heineke. Like the year before Wentz. It was probably the best offense they've had in the last, going back to before Alex broke his leg, going back to like Kirk. I mean,
just like Kirk was the last really good offense this team had, but that's a long time ago now.
All right, so you want yards or points?
I think points is a more telling stat.
See, I think yards is, because you can move the ball well and then not score. Either way, none of it's good.
I think points for fans, points is more important than yards, but for coaches and analytics and football people, yards is more important.
So the best of the last 5 years, right? So that's going back to 18. The best points year came in 21. So that was when Fitz got hurt. Taylor started the whole season. They were 23rd in points scored. Last year, in 22 was their highest yardage total. And that was when they rotated back and forth with Carson, right? Wasn't 22 Carson?
Yeah.
And they finished 20th in yards. They don't have a finish below 20 since Gruden and Kirk. It's 2017 and 2016. And the only year in the last 20, seemingly, maybe even further back, I mean, the only year since 2000 they've been top 10 in points and yards was Robert's rookie year. So for everybody that's like, oh, man, we don't need another Robert. Like, you sure? It's the last time they were good. There wasn't longevity. And one huge difference that I feel like it's very underrepresented in the Jaden Robert discussion. One, I think they're just entirely different players. But two, they gave up a ton to move up and get Robert. Jaden, they just drafted where they were. Like that, they were just taking the best player where their draft pick was. And I think that will have a huge impact on how Washington was able to support Robert, or anybody, frankly.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's going to be the biggest difference is, again, this year, I think you can see from the drafts with Adam Peters and company, they're not deluded into thinking that, they're going to go win 15 games and be the best team in the NFC East right away. They're trying to build to that point. They're trying to build to where it's not a, 1 year you flip up and win double-digit games, and then you go right back the next year because you have a tough schedule to, to winning, 5, 6, 7 games. They're trying to build this thing so that they can consistently win. And just whatever happens with Jaden this year, barring, some abject, failure from everyone, you have first round picks the next couple of years to keep building this thing, to add explosive players, to add the big college names, the players who can come in and be, franchise changers. And, you hope that Jaden is that guy. And then you hope that Peters is able to continue to go out and go get those guys. You look at San Fran and the fact that they are able to go get McCaffrey and bring him in, go get Trent and bring him in, go get some of these big names who are difference makers for their teams in free agency. But that only happened after they already had a strong base, which they built through the draft. And that's what Adam Peters has said. And I think that's what we're seeing happen. And to have, the words match the actions from this front office and this coaching staff is an important first step in rebuilding this franchise.
For sure. Dude, did you watch any of the Tom Brady roast?
The Tom Brady roast was incredible. It was so great. Bringing Bill Belichick out, whatever that was, midway through, 3/4 of the way through, was awesome. He was so good on the mic. I loved listening to him. And my favorite takeaway from all of it was I always thought Tom's TB12 guy,
Guerrero.
Alex.
Yeah.
I always thought he was kind of like a fringe dude. I think he kind of got a feel for what the Patriots thought of him throughout that roast that he continued to catch strays all night long. That was a lot of fun.
Guerrero had to have been self-medicated, right? Like the way he was like just so awkwardly like over laughing every time he got dunked on. I find it hard to believe that was like very real.
I mean, this is a guy who's convinced Tom not to eat strawberries and, that all these other normal foods are bad. He might just be a weird dude.
Yeah, that's true. I think he is a weird dude, but I think he's kind of a con artist too. I don't know. I thought the Brady stuff was really, really funny. Did you make any money on the Derby?
The Derby, I did not. I had Chasing Freedom was my horse. I think he finished 4th. I had actually none of the top 3 in any of my bets, so it was a big fat offer for the Derby for me.
Big fat offer.
How about you? Who'd you have?
Dude, I didn't bet on it. I had nothing. And
you had Union. You had a big day going. You had family and friends and heart.
Yeah, we had a lot going on. But we still watched it, and the girls watched it. My kids were really into it. I don't know that I want to have them watch more horse racing, but they enjoyed it. It was
okay. I was talking with my friends about it. It's 3 days a year for about 2 hours. 2 hours on those 3 days that we care about horse racing and pretend like we know anything about these horses.
Totally.
Because we listen to pundits and read a little bit. After that, for 2 weeks, we're not going to care until Preakness, and then we're not going to care until Belmont, and we might not even care about the Belmont race if it's not a Triple Crown.
I tell you what, I just remembered something. So, Jeff, if I can get you a photo, can you throw this in the stream for Mitch? I just dropped. So our friend Brett Sullivan, who Mitch is basically like brother-in-laws with, was at Mitch's parents' house over the weekend and sent me a photo of 2-year-old Mitch Tischler wearing like a bumblebee elephant T-shirt. Can we make a graphic out of that for when Mitch joins the program, Jeff?
Sure.
Linville, what do you think of that photo of the big man?
I mean, it's a photo.
Are those like suspenders?
I believe so. You got to remember this is 1985, give or take, that picture was taken. Maybe 1984. Listen, we had my nephew's first birthday this weekend, which was a really fun event. Unfortunately, it was raining on Saturday. It was supposed to be at a park, and with everyone out there, we ended up having to move it to my parents' house. I'm sure at everyone's parents' house, they have tons of pictures of when they were little. Brett could have chosen a worse picture because there are some more embarrassing pictures around the house. So I appreciate his discretion in only sending that one.
It was strong discretion, Sully. Send me the worst ones, but I think that'll be Mitch's graphic going forward here. I think that's a big opportunity.
If we're also making requests, I don't have a lot of room to give Landfill a hard time. Normally I do, but not today. If we're if we're bringing in the boy bands and the NSYNC for my music, you got to bring on it's going to be me, being that we're in May now.
I think I think it isn't the title. It's gonna be me.
Sure, whatever it is.
Yeah, but that's really like an April 30th song because it's gonna be May, and then that's what you do on April.
Well, you didn't use it in April either, Landfill.
I used it on April. I played on April 30th.
I gotta be honest. I don't really know. I don't have the deep cut boy band knowledge you two do.
That's right.
I don't know if that's a deep cut. That might be the biggest boy band song.
That's actually a good point. It's a really real.
It's the one that you play all the time.
Backstreet's Back.
All right, that's
I don't think so.
That one.
I'll tell you what. Between the hip hop beef and this discussion on
can you tell it's May?
Right? Should we move this to a music channel?
Yeah. Real quick, who's going to win the NBA championship and the Stanley Cup?
I got the Mavs winning the NBA championship, which I think is a pretty big upset. Listen, when they made that
you invested
trade
in that, you could make some money.
I feel like you could. When they made that move for Daniel Gafford, I thought that was a huge trade for them. Obviously, we got to watch him here with the Wiz. But he provides a big inside presence for them, and he's going to be a problem when he's the third or fourth option after Kyrie and Luka. I'm excited to watch him hopefully get a ring over there.
All right, I think you're wrong, but it's interesting. What about in the Cup?
The Cup, it's hard for me to not take the Rangers. I know the President's Cup teams don't normally go far, but I watched the game last night against the Hurricanes, and they kind of dominated that thing from start to finish, and feel like kind of like the Caps were when they won the Cup, kind of a little bit of a team of destiny after a couple very disappointing playoff performances the past couple of years.
I am rooting for Edmonton. I'm all in on the Oilers.